Alright, we got tonight's match of Nickbotian versus Egtraitor. Nickbotian bringing a Secret Hunter, a Zoo Warlock, a Tempo Rogue that we're already seeing. And the combo priest that Nickbotian brings to the tournament is banned for this matchup. Egtraitor bringing, as we can currently see on the screen, a Highlander Hunter. Well, you can't clearly tell it's a Highlander Hunter. A Control Warrior, a Quest Druid, and the banned deck is a Quest Shaman. A very popular deck. Noteworthy here is that it's not, in fact, the Warrior that is banned, which usually ends up being the case. And timer for the mulligan is running down, and let's see what those make of their hands. I mean, honestly, Explosive Trap, Eaglehorn Bow, Hyena Alpha, there are some cards there. Now, granted, Highlander deck, you really like Zephyrus. I understand it. And yeah, Argent Squire coming down, Tempo Rogue doing tempo things. That's kind of what you want to be doing. Yeah, as 100 you just pass here, I think. There is no reason to coin out a pressure plate, especially if it were to hit the Argent Squire, it would be the worst thing that could happen pretty much with it. As the Rogue, you set up the weapon. There is an argument you made for not attacking, actually, because you do have the Henchclan Thug on hand, and I personally would not attack if you don't have a chance to re-equip the dagger on turn 4, if you know you can play the Thug on 3, but that's a personal choice, and as a lot of these things comes down to preference. Now, if you're the hunter, the question always becomes, do you play Zephyrus for the tempo? Not having a 3-drop on hand, we've seen before that it can be a good choice. You play Zephyrus on 2, it gives you a 3-drop, so you have something to play on 2 and 3. Could be crucial keeping the board against the Rogue, decides to go with the pressure plate, assuming that it's not going to get triggered right now, but rather later when it gets important. Nick opting to play the Blink Fox over the Thug, thereby solving that whole knife dilemma. And now we're looking at, I guess, Coin Mark Shot seems very promising all of a sudden. Because you need to get something going. You have a Discover effect in the Mark Shot. You can get rid of the Blink Fox. It allows you to stay alive a lot better. And again, you get something that you might be able to use next turn, like another Mark Shot. Decides to go with the Kill Command instead, allowing himself the next turn play to be a Zilliax or a Subject 9. Subject 9 generally looking more appealing. But Zilliax, of course, being overall arguably the stronger card, although, of course, the later you play Subject, the worse it gets. There's a trap, makes it worse. Mark Shot still looking very good, actually. You can now Mark Shot the Thug, the Henchland Thug, that is, Henchland Burglar on hand. I personally don't see what else you would want to be doing. Yeah, this is the obvious play here. Red Trap not looking too bad. Rapid Fire might actually be kind of nice. Underrated card, especially in this matchup where there's a lot of lackeys. There is the Argent Squire, which both to pop the Divine Shield and to kill it. And, you know, you always might be 1 damage short here and there. Now, similar argument for Bestial Wrath, allows you to take a really good trade potentially. And Rat Trap might have been the weakest card there, although you are facing a deck that plays a lot of cards in a single turn, so having to play around that would also be a little awkward actually. And you do have Secret Synergy. So, 3 arguably valid cards. Now, that Animal Companion had the worst of luck there, running into exactly that secret. I mean, you kind of know that it might be that. But even then it's a 50-50, so that's just a luck thing. Subject 9 to draw the remaining secrets. And now you have to look at hand size. And we see a full hand, the Rat Trap being burned. This is important, it's a Highlander deck, so you know that the Rat Trap is burned. There is no more Rat Trap coming up unless your opponent generates a secret somehow. Also, this is the turn where you play Coin, because you don't want to overdraw another key card. As a matter of fact, maybe you would have played Coin first, but then you would have overdrawn something else that is not a secret, so I can see the point there. Maybe you even use the mana to get a rapid shot in to take off the Divine Shield. Whether or not you do that doesn't matter that much. It's more mana efficient, of course, but you might need the damage in another situation more than right now. Decides to overdraw once more, which I don't like, but we'll see. A spell from another class. Dreamlight Guardians, generally pretty good. Shadow Pain could probably find some use, yeah. Vendetta, of course, being perfect here. Underbelly, Fence also perfectly set up. So just having a spell from another class almost being more worthwhile right now than anything being playable. Mass Contender, probably the best card to burn considering there's no more secrets in the deck. So at this point you are looking at the Mass Contender effectively having no battle cry. But now you gotta make some plays happen. And Explosive Trap is awkward, but honestly with the rapid shots it could have potentially worked. Just has to go with Ziliax instead. Understandable. Takes out the Thug, heals you by 3, presumably by 6 total. Although there is pain coming up potentially. And honestly very likely because as the rogue, it's all about dealing damage right now, and that healing is gonna slow you down. And Sap isn't gonna solve that, so yeah. Shadow Pain, very understandable play here. Gets a Titanic Lackey and a Goblin Lackey. I think that's not exactly what you want to see here. But Titanic Lackey is underrated. That finds a lot of good uses for forcing your opponent into trades, and similar of course, but more proactive, the Goblin Lackey. And do you just go for the brand here? Egtraitor saying yes I will, and using it for a trade, and you might just have to as far back as you are. Of course Zap could bring the Crush back to hand, and it can't be played next turn because it's a 9-drop, so that's a worthy consideration at the very least. The other question is, can you deal with it? Or even just put a taunt in the way for the time being, and then deal with it later. You can very much deal with it, for sure. With the Goblin Lackey and the Stealth Deckhand, of course. But do you? Because you can just put the Titanic Lackey on, optimally, the Argent Squire, and just tell your opponent, yeah, you're not gonna get to my face this turn, and I get another turn of hitting you. And honestly, as much as that arguably is not the optimal play, maybe it just makes sense for, you know, tempo reasons. Decides to go all in on the trade there. Snake Trap triggers. Here's the question though. Stealthy Deckhand has charge. Why in the world do you not buff your Argent Squire? Granted, it's probably going to be traded off, but still, at least you're producing a threat. Now you do have Sunreaver Spy here as the hunter, in combination with any combination of secrets if you like. Explosive looks pretty good, I must admit, although your opponent might very well trade a lot. Unleash the Wyvern, Unleash the Beast for the Wyvern, of course, always a good play. Probably takes off, yeah, one of the Evil Miscreants. And yeah, keeps trading off the board. Gets rid of the Miscreants. Doesn't want those to go back to hand in any capacity, understandably so. Rapid Fire, dealing with the rest of the board. And now you have the board. And, you know, with reasonably sized minions, that's arguably also something you're asking for an answer. And once again with the Animal Companion. It doesn't just really help you that much there. Although, 4/5, nice to have. I mean, of course the second Unleash the Beast is on hand, you know that. So that is going to take that out. Or even the bounced one, of course. For less mana here. Siamat drawn. Rush Wind Fury is usually what you're going to go with. And that is a way to take out both the Taunt and the Leok. And then you can still trade off the Titanic Lackey. You're left with a, at that point then, a 2/2. Not the biggest thing, but you're still ahead on the board, and you still have 2 mana to probably put a secret to play. Yeah, Snipe. Probably the best one here, because explosive is always awkward, especially on an empty board. And here you're just saying, yeah, play something. And of course, 1-1, not a big deal. But you don't know that as the hunter, and you get the Shark Fin and the South Sea coming down. South Sea takes a trade. Shark Fin triggers, and all of a sudden the board is flipped. Explosive Rune single-handedly deals with that board, except for the Reborn Micro Mummy. So you just might Explosive Runes, equip the weapon, maybe hit face and hero power. A bit of a passive turn, but that would allow you to not allow your opponent many trades, because you know your opponent's gonna trade if you have something on the board that looks very threatening. So you might want to consider, especially if there's a secret up, which could very well be explosive, you play around that, of course. So takes the hit, perfectly setting up the explosive in theory, but of course in practice that's not gonna work. I don't think you hit there. You could hit face, but why take out the thing that would die to explosive anyways? Do you really want to protect your weapon that much when you're that low? SS7 just might stay on hand, because the burst damage is more important than the board right now. Which also means you might end up going face. Decides to actually plays very passively, which makes sense. Yeah, now, Sunriver Spy, Hyena Alpha, Secret Keeper, Secret, there's a lot of stuff here. And, you know, full board. And at that point, as a hunter, you feel a lot better about your situation. You know your opponent's not going to push 12 in a single turn. You are, okay, going down to 11. Leroy dies to explosive. Also, it's countered by freezing. So, yeah. Make something happen as the rogue here. And those combo cards, not gonna be seeing an optimal situation of play here. And as much as you were ahead a second ago, now you're not that much. Now this is of course a good chance to test for Explosive Trap with the dagger, because you're not losing any minions. And then you can still try pushing damage somewhere, but then again you also have to now look at not losing, because your opponent has 5, 7, 9, 12, 14, 17 attack on board, plus 2 from the hero power. That's a 2-turn clock. Decides to re-equip the dagger, which of course does not trigger the combo, so I think while you can't afford to take much damage here in general, you would have at least wanted to trade to test for the secret, but this is just over. Zephyrus is perfect lethal, of course. Doesn't even play it. Zephyrus would have given you Savage Roar or Bloodlust for an easy lethal, so this is a case of a missed lethal. Although in a so dominant board state that it really doesn't matter. Evil Cablerat gives us a, yeah, you don't necessarily want that, although I'm not sure which lackey would keep you alive here. Titanic could give you a taunt, so could Witchy. I guess Faceless could too, yeah. But none of them impactful enough no matter what. Yeah, and now runs into the Explosive Trap. Honestly, I'm not going to criticize a misplay at that stage of the game, because once you're lost, you can make any misplay you want. And again, sometimes you do them intentionally even, so I'm not going to criticize this one, but yeah, this seems to be going 1-0 for Egtraitor. Asking the question as always, from the perspective of Nickbotian, do you go right back to the hunter? To the rogue, or do you decide to play a different deck? Now he knows he's going to be facing either Control Warrior or Quest Druid, so maybe the rogue isn't the best idea, but also Secret Hunter and Zoo Warlock, so you really don't have the greatest matchups here. So we're seeing the Quest Druid versus once again the Tempo Rogue. Naturally keeping the quest, of course, for the Druid. We're seeing an Oasis Surge and a Starfall. That's awkward, but then again, you don't want to play much the first few turns anyway, so it really doesn't matter. You don't have the coin, you don't have Innervate, so you are gonna be done by turn 5, which is when the Oasis Surger comes down, so that's actually pretty perfect. You get Worthy Expedition on 2, Hero Power on 3, and Ferocious Howl on 4. I think it's Oasis Surger here, although Lodi is always looking tempting. Picks the Lodi. Might be a good play on 3, depending on what your opponent puts down. So, I can understand wanting a decent play right now rather than later. With the option of it being even greater later, of course. Typical rogue shenanigans. Dagger, deckhand, 3 points of damage. And as the rogue, I say there's a lot in these kinds of matchups, but once the druid gets going, it's basically over, so you have to win quick here. Optimally before the quest gets done, but definitely before the whole heal 12, summon a 6/6 with taunt shenanigans starts happening. And I guess you try to make the most proactive plays in this case. That's actually, yeah, this is the most damaging play. I would have probably suggested Blink Fox here. It puts more stuff on the board. And as you already said, that was a mistake. You have to attack with your deckhand first. Good habit to get into. Played it in the first turn, even where it didn't matter. The deckhand attack first, and generally that's a habit you want to get into. Your power, of course, deals with a set deckhand, so even if it had hit face, it would just be dead. So that's why I would have suggested Blink Fox. Doesn't die as easily, of course, does die to Wrath. You didn't know your opponent would have it. As a matter of fact, your opponent didn't know they'd have it. And yeah, now it's Burglar. Eye for an Eye being a decent option for damage. Snipe doesn't really deal with most of your opponent's stuff, but you just might consider it. As a matter of fact, I think I'd pick Snipe here. But depending on how aggressive you want to be, I can see Eye for an Eye. Cone of Cold is a delay thing. If your opponent actually can't heal and take your stuff out, maybe? Okay, now, yeah, it's Wrath for 3 damage. And then you just hero power and hit the face. Very easy turn for the druid. Once the quest gets done, it's gonna get crazy. Of course, the quest gets done at the end of the turn, but I mean, once you have the quest in play, of course. So Link Fox still there. So is the Cable Rat. Goes for a Rat and SI7. Again, playing very aggressively, taking my advice to heart that you want to play aggressively in this matchup. Maybe in this case a little too aggressively, but I can definitely see the motivation here. And this looks like you want to play Oasis Surger. Just perfectly deal with the board. Get a 5 for the 5/2 remaining. And also have the chance to do the same thing again with Floop next turn. And that's when the rogue very quickly starts losing the board. And you either have to somehow regain the board, which is tough as the rogue, or you just have to try pushing it. And in this case, of course, one trade, that's very easy. Witchy Lackey probably, okay, goes on the Goblin. I personally always prefer going on the most understated thing, which would be the Miscreant, but I can only see the argument here. Yes, Starfall for the Anubisath makes sense. I would have probably seen an argument to just play the other Oasis Surger, or maybe even the Floop, especially because then you can play the Merchant and still draw a card. I decided to go for it in this constellation, for double Anubisath, and just again asking the rogue, how do you want to get through this? You know the rogue is explosive. You know that cards like Leroy Jenkins can just kill you in a turn, and you're saying, yeah, here is some taunts. Leroy Jenkins Eviscerate, that doesn't do anything. I mean, granted, 19 health is still relatively high against the rogue. I think Cheap Shot might actually be the pick here, because it does allow you to get through the taunts. Or through the big hitters that trade off the board. No matter what, it does allow you to get through stuff. Poisonous Knives, kind of the same idea. But you are taking a lot more face damage in the process, and the druid, while not necessarily that aggressive, is definitely putting up big stuff every turn, and yes, they'll use it to trade, as being the slower deck here, but then at one turn they'll just start hitting you in the face. Hidden Oasis seems like it would just tie up the game. Back to full health, another big taunt, And at that point you might even start hitting face, although again you're slow enough that you can just afford not to. Swiping face, yeah, sure. Perfectly leaves one mana open for the merchant to draw a card off. Also always a consideration, if you only have 1 or 2 mana left, do you play a card or don't you? In this case you evidently don't. And this looks lost right about now. Yeah, Evis delays it a little bit. Double cheap shot. Maybe, or that also ends up being the same result more or less. But this is just delaying. And the Oasis Surgers deal with that. So you could bring your opponent down to 7 if you want to. Lodi also deals with it. Same idea, you get your opponent down to 7. If you want it. Hidden Oasis, possible. Worthy Expedition might find you lethal. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if there's anything in there that does. Ancient of Lore, not a good card generally speaking, but you are at such a high mana total that you might consider it, but you go for Wrath. Same idea, you draw a card. Yeah, and then just run an Oasis Surger in there, get the other one on the board. And, I mean, even the one that you run in survives, if just barely. And then you have a 5-5, a 5-1, a 3-3, and a 1-4. And again, you're asking your opponent to deal with it, while also surviving. So, since go the Hidden Oasis, plays it thereby a little bit slower. Bring his opponent, quote-unquote, only down to 10. But still very much pushing for lethal next turn. The cheap shots will take out the taunt, so Scenarios is not quite lethal right here. But again, this is almost over, and you're explosive as the rogue, but first of all, you've already used a lot of your explosive potential, and second of all, you're not going to be dealing... Oh, Feoris, not looking that good right now, actually. You're not going to deal 34 points of damage in one turn. And Oasis Surger might come down, plays Feoris. Relative slow play, but I guess he's saying I'm not going to get a much better Feoris, so I might as well play it now. And again, Scenarios just going wide is going to make you so much stronger. The Underbelly Fence does not have Rush without a card on the hand. And comes down anyways, but now you're looking at Scenarios, right? +2/+2. That is 3 plus another 4, that's exactly lethal. And someone did not hear me say direct lethal through the magic of the internet, so plays it slow. And wait, it's 3/4, it's 7. That never mind. I should be doing math this late. Yeah, no, that was not lethal. False alarm. But still. Very much one game, and pretty much the suicide here, although he couldn't quite achieve it. And that officially, I think, makes Egtraitor 2-0. And I'm gonna come at you again with the old thing. 2-0. You know what your opponent is bringing. The problem is, Nickbotian, you see what your opponent is bringing, but it's a control warrior, and you have 3 relatively aggressive decks. That's the one matchup that you should be able to afford to lose, hoping to somehow win against the other 2 decks. And if it's down to this, I'm not gonna say it's completely lost. By no means. There's always a chance. The warrior can draw badly, you can draw well. You can outplay the warrior. It's definitely not a concede and just get over with it, but the chances are slim. We're seeing a good curve, good-ish curve right now, but what you're looking at here is playing Snake Trap on 2. Because you know your opponent likes to trade. And Rat Trap is never in the world going to be triggered. Or at least not anytime soon. Misdirection neither, so that's the one secret that could see being triggered. And yeah, you just kind of already run a little bit into that flunky. Of course, Secret Planning to snipe might be an option next turn if that were to occur that way. Plays the flunky. Bear hype. Bear hype in the comments, bear hype in the Discord. You know where to go with your bear hype. But Zilliax being definitely the smart choice here. I'm not going to criticize picking Zilliax over the bear as much as the bear is being, well, hyped. Oh, that sucks. Pressure Plate, best choice by far, but I think you'd rather want the freezing. Maybe not to play it right now, but that's probably the most impactful one you could have. And again, the warrior just not a care in the world. Just put stuff down. Armor up. Wait. Why not? You can afford it. Animal Companion looks pretty good right now. Hunter's Pack, of course, generally also pretty good. Decides to, I want to say, somewhat unnecessarily go for a secret hero power here. Yes, the hero power is good, but it's also cancelled by your opponent's hero power. Finally goes for the hit. Shimmerfly is gonna die. Some snakes are probably also gonna die by way of the Eternium Rovers, which is even more armor for the warrior, which is the one thing you don't want your opponent to have when you're the hunter, of course. And just keeps drawing, armoring, just doing warrior things. Now, drawing is the one thing in there that's probably not the biggest warrior thing, but, you know, with control warriors running Oceana, you really aren't concerned about it. Hunter's Pack coming up, looking for answers. Again, I think freezing is one of the better secrets, not at this point in the play, but definitely against just warrior categorically. But, yeah, starting from behind effectively right now with against the warrior is not what you want to do. And the warrior, almost his biggest concern right now, just what do I do with all these cards that I have? I don't have to answer anything right now. I mean, you could just put the Zilliax on a rover or Snip Snap on a rover. Maybe if you put Snip Snap, you probably even might coin the other one. It's a little aggressive, but yeah, it doesn't do that. Again, it's understandable, it's not what you do. The misdirection gonna probably hit the best possible target, I want to say. And yeah, what are you gonna do as the hunter? You have the Tundra Rhino, that's not gonna get you that far. Animal Companion, same idea. Animal Companion Wing Blast, probably what you want to go for here. But again, you have to at the very least now get to that Zul'jin turn, because that's gonna be huge. But that, unless you have all the animal companions and Unleash the Beasts played until then, is not gonna get you that far. So you have to now set up that Zul'jin, and you better set it up good. Freezing Trap, of course, triggered by the value battlecry minion here, getting that little bit of extra value that you really need as the control warrior in this favored matchup. And we see double Zilliax on hand, so that's never a bad thing, you know, especially if you're on max in your deck. And we're seeing Leok, probably not the animal companion you wanted to Dire Frenzy. Does it anyways, but of course the high roll here would have been Huffer probably, because you want to push a lot of damage. With Huffer, Dire Frenzy, you're dealing 7 damage right now, and you have 3 mana 7/2s in your deck with charge. That's one of the few things that might just be able to dent a lot into the warrior. And again, it didn't happen, so once again, as a warrior, you're looking at a board here, and you're looking at which of my answers do I use. I personally like the Restless Mummy here. Sacrifice one Eternium Rover. Still gets you to keep a 3/5. You get 2 armor out of the exchange. You can steal hero power. That just generally seems like a really good trade. And honestly, the Hunter should not be losing health this fast against the Warrior. Just because that's not what the Warrior does, but that's just showing how little offense was coming up here for a while, and that's offense. And yeah, you go for it because you know the Hunter isn't actively trying to kill you. But that shield slam, that's also potentially pretty big. And now once again, you're looking at your options. Putting a Ziliax on the Eternium Rover instantly deals 6 to something. If you can deal those 6, then all of a sudden the Dynamatic is just one off. If you play your Dynamatic and then, well, you don't have the mana to do both sadly this turn, but it's also valid to just play the Tomb Warden and just wait this turn out. You probably don't want to, you probably want to somehow kill the Tundra Rhino, and again, Ziliax seems like a prime opportunity here, although Hero Power, Shield Slam would have also always been an option. Decides to go for the Shield Slamming, Shield Slamming the Leok, and still opens up the possibility of playing a Ziliax. Played around the Pressure Plate very effectively here. And just plays Automatic, fair enough. You don't need Ziliax right now, why play it? Just Warrior doing Warrior things. And I think Unleash the Beast is big here. It's arguably one of the better cards you could have gotten. And decides to use it to trade off the Microbot to reduce the Wing Blast and use that to kill off the Dynamatic. I think that's a very clever play, although next Dynamatic will just kill the Beast. Towncracker coming down. Looking for a Militia Commander, potentially? I honestly don't have the exact deck list in mind right now. Restless Mummy would do the job, but yeah. Ziliax or Dynamatic both also do it very well. And I want to say one very minor misplay here. And this is not going to cost you the game or anything, but you would have wanted to play the other Ziliax. Because when this Ziliax gets played, it says generated by Frightened Flunky. You're now telling your opponent you still have another Ziliax coming up at some point. Again, this is maybe not the matchup where it matters most, but you generally don't want to give your opponent free information. So that's one of those very specific moments that you just might want to look at. Of course, once again, clearing the board, armoring up, doing warrior things. And as the hunter, do you Zul'jin right now? It appears that the answer is yes. You get 2 animal companions and 2 wyverns out of this, as well as some miscellaneous secrets. Generally speaking, one of the wyverns can trade into the 4/5. You get a pretty big board. Does of course run into Brawl, but you really can't have a Zul'jin turn without running into Brawl. And you of course get another Unleash the Beast on hand. You get some stuff from the Hunter's pack on hand. It is definitely a good refill turn. But yeah, this is... I mean, you want to hit the Wyvern in for sure, because that's all you can do with it, and you kind of see removal options coming. Omega Devastator, and that be a mistake. I'm not sure what exactly was the mistake there, but Omega Devastator perfectly clears the board here. And now what? Okay, yeah, reducing the cost of a random beast in your hand makes the Starving Buzzard definitely more playable. Does it make it worthwhile? Probably not. Axe goes into the Devastator to make the Vulture trade less appealing, but effectively it doesn't change anything. Super Collider, not that good right now. You do, however, have a Restless Mummy that can, at least in theory, take out the spider. You should, if you paid attention, know what the secrets are. Because Zul'jin replaced them in order, so if there were a 6th secret, you would know which one it was that didn't come up. Right now, of course, Freezing Trap. You knew it was there. Omega Devastator on hand is better than Omega Devastator on board, so That's nice. Yeah, there's draw from the buzzer, but the one thing that's gonna do, as much as it does give you resources, which you want, it also brings you closer to fatigue, which is ultimately one of the major win conditions for the warrior. And said warrior now looking at the options, and it just might be warpathing. The options being double warpath and Dinomatic, or just quintuple warpath. I think quintuple warpath would be fair enough. Decides to go for a more basic trade here. Probably ends up leaving some snakes alive here. Oh, Dinomatic and Mummy clears the board as well. Honestly, I think this still would have been a very decent warpath turn, but you might as well establish the body. Yeah, you're getting the Dire Frenzied Mishas from the Zul'jin here. Those are very big, but also, of course, die to Mega Devastator. And yeah, Zilliax on the Omega Devastator would kill the other one potentially. Super Collider, very smooth solution as well. Again, if there's one thing that the warrior isn't lacking, it's answers. And which Misha did you attack? I honestly didn't pay that much attention. Yeah, exactly. I was about to say that's a misplay. Because you know there's a snake trap, you know the minion summoned to the right, you want to kill the leftmost Misha. This is actually arguably the first major relief that the Hunter is getting here. You're finally able to maybe make some plays. And yes, those plays aren't gonna win you the game right away, but maybe, just maybe, you can push enough damage that you can win over a couple turns. Discovers a spell. Not what you're looking for. You're looking for probably kill command at this point. Bestial Wrath, fine. You don't take any trades, I think. If you want to get rid of the Dinomatic, you just Deadly Shot it. Hunter's Pack coming up for even more draw. And just might be Deadly Shot to take firm control of the board, but then again, it's definitely one of the smaller targets here. It's the Hatchet instead for a more tempo-oriented play. Makes perfect sense. And yeah, now as the warrior, all of a sudden, you're way further behind. I don't know about this. Now you're way too low. Now granted, there is still Zilliax there, but how do you feel about just running the Dinomatic in and quintuple warpathing? Or I think at that point you only need to quadruple even. It clears the board. You're at more health than you are now. You can Omega Devastator and coin Zilliax. Would definitely be a very smooth way to fix your health situation. But for all you know, your opponent has one kill command on hand. And sufficient amounts of beasts on board. That's not quite enough. Not to take out the entire board, at the very least. Shield block, necessary survival equipment here. And plays the Dinomatic down. And we're seeing it work out. You probably want the snake to survive. Unless your opponent has kill command, in which case you don't. But, you know, those are just the considerations here. Unleash the Beast, and once again, a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure coming from the Hunter. And as a warrior, you don't want to be this low. And there is a lot of stuff to come back with this from. But you just have to produce some of it right now. And again, I think that playing Omega Devastator coin Zilliax for the 7-point heal is definitely something you could very significantly do. Of course, it's a little wasted in killing a 1-1 with the Devastator or the 5-2, whichever one you prefer. But it makes sense. Plague of Wrath does deal with the big thing, but then you still have to play Zilliax or Warpath. You could also double Warpath to take care of the board and then produce some taunts. Play Zilliax without another mech, knowing there's a freezing trap out there, which makes sense. You could have just played a Mega Devastator, take out one thing, play the Zilliax on there and leave it sit. Now all of a sudden, yeah, you have to scramble for a play here, and I was about to say, you might have to coin that taunt, you don't, and that's GG, yeah. And despite what you'd expect of the warrior here, that is now 2-1. And Nick's still in the game. Nick now bringing the Zoo Warlock against the warrior. And now Egtraitor has to show that he can play Control Warrior and that the last match was just a fluke. Because you really are in a situation where it's gonna look really bad if you lose. Like, if you lose 3 back-to-back games against relatively aggressive decks with your Control Warrior, not a good look. Granted, the Secret Hunter was arguably the worst matchup he could have gotten out of the 3 available, so not gonna criticize it too much, but yeah. Flunkies definitely looks good here. Bear hype! 2 different types of bears too. Picks the Grizzly. Makes sense. You are facing a very aggressive deck that is not gonna have a big hand at most times, so that's gonna be a big taunt. And plays the boars to take care of, speaking of taunts, yeah, and deals 3 damage to face. If you can keep dealing more to face than your opponent can armor up, then you're definitely performing according to your game plan. But we're already running into situations where a double Warpath is not in the too far future and does give you both armor and clearing. As a matter of fact, you could have hit and single Warpath here. Is it worth it? Probably not. Because there is more stuff in the Warlock, and we see a Swamp Leech there. Coming down. Not really the most relevant card in this matchup, but maybe just a little underrated against aggro. If you're playing your Zoo Block against aggro, you just might want that healing. Then again, this Zoo Warlock list, worst of all things, is definitely by no means a complete Zoo Warlock list. We're not gonna be seeing any kind of diseased vultures or never set thrashes or any of that stuff in here, so this looks like a really poor matchup, I gotta say. Witchwood Grizzly, 12 health. That sucks. You rarely get the chance to play a 12 health Grizzly, and again, if you're the Warlock, what do you want to do? I mean, yes, you want to deal damage, but how?
No tomb can hold me. No tomb can hold me.
Maybe take out the Dragonhawk. Okay, fair enough, takes out both. That makes perfect sense. Goldshire Footman coming down. Probably tapping another 1-drop. And at this point, as the warrior, your win condition is your opponent just tapping themselves to death one way or another. Either through fatigue or just damage. Super Collider actually not looking that bad, although that's what I would consider overkill here. Although, I'll say, hitting the Witchwood Grizzly in and then Super Collidering on the egg is actually a very fancy play because it doesn't give you any damage and it still takes out the egg. It doesn't really deal with the Murloc, but you know. Okay, just kills the Murloc straight up. Probably a better choice because you're not too worried about the egg. Neither are you about a Shield Bearer. And we see a Beaming Sidekick making a bigger Shield Bearer. That's just nice. At this point, you might as well just wait for your Mega Devastator turn. Decides not to. Just plays the Devastator. I think we're now going to see the most aggressive control warrior gameplay that you've ever seen. And for the reason that there's just no real opposition here. That Mortal Coil actually might come in handy at some point. Especially with the Reborn Mummy here, but again, not seeing it too much here. Flunky seems like an instant play. I understand the trade for the dragon egg there, but you didn't even need to do that. I know you want to keep the board clean, but you just gave your opponent a card that they didn't need to have. And I think there's 7 damage going into face, and that brings your opponent down to 15. And again, surprisingly enough, as the warrior, like normally the more aggressive deck would do, you can start calculating lethals maybe. There is 6, 10, 12, 13. Right now you just have to find 2 points somewhere. That could be a magnetic mech in the Omega Assembly. And Omega Assembly is generally a good card. Just actually, no, that would have just been Ziliax. Ziliax was lethal, my bad. That would have already been there. Decides to go for a sensible Shield Slam. And if you play Ziliax, you can still win it this turn. That's one off. And also it triggers at the start of your turn, so there's gonna be a minion maybe in the way. I'm just gonna point this out. Not gonna lose you the matchup in this case, probably. Yeah, definitely. But that was a misty. And that concludes this matchup, 3-1. Yeah, that happened. So, if you want to see more of this, of course check out the backlog on our channel and then subscribe for the future videos. If you want to get into contact with us or anyone involved in this tournament, I could recommend you the TrashcanTV Discord server, link is in the description. And of course, leave any feedback and commentary in, well, the comment section. And leave your rating at the like button. You know how YouTube works. Anyway, that's it.